Elena Marquez had never planned to stop believing in love. It simply happened slowly, almost quietly, the way a flower closes when the sun disappears. There was no single moment where she said, "Enough." It was years of small disappointments, long nights at work, and relationships that faded before they even had the chance to grow. By the time she turned 32, she didn't feel sad about it anymore, just numb, as if love was a movie she had watched too many times, and now she knew all the scenes by heart. She worked as an ER nurse in a busy city hospital, and the job consumed most of her energy. The days were long, the nights were longer. Some weeks she barely slept. She saw people on their worst days, scared, hurting, desperate. Elena always stayed calm. She was known for her steady hands, her soft voice, her ability to take control even when everything around her felt like a storm. Co-workers admired her strength. Patients trusted her instantly. But no one knew how heavy her heart felt when she walked to her car at the end of each shift. Her friends sometimes told her she needed a break. "Go somewhere," they said. "Do something for yourself." Elena always answered with the same small smile. Maybe someday. But someday never came. Not until the night her supervisor gently pulled her aside after a 12-hour shift that felt like 20. "Elena," she said, placing a hand on her shoulder, "you're burning out. You need rest. A real break. Take a week, maybe 2. Elena tried to argue, but her supervisor was right. Her eyes felt heavy. Her body felt heavier. Her heart felt tired in a way sleep alone couldn't fix. That night, instead of driving home, she parked her car outside a small cafe and sat there for a long time. The glow from the streetlights made the world look softer than she felt. She opened her phone and searched for vacation rentals, something she had never done before. She wasn't looking for anything special, just a place far from noise, traffic, and hospital alarms. That was when she saw a listing for a guest ranch in Texas. The pictures showed wide-open fields, a wooden lodge with warm lights, and horses grazing peacefully under a golden sky. The description promised quiet mornings, rustic charm, and long walks under endless stars. Elena didn't know why, but her chest loosened a little at the sight. Maybe it was the space. Maybe it was the silence she imagined. Maybe it was the idea of being somewhere so different from her life. Without letting herself overthink it, as she usually did, she booked it for 1 week. 2 days later, she stuffed clothes into a suitcase, locked her apartment, and drove to the airport with a strange mix of exhaustion and hope. She didn't expect anything life-changing. She certainly didn't expect romance. She just wanted to breathe again. The drive from the Texas airport to the ranch took 2 hours. Rolling hills stretched out on both sides of the road. Old fences lined the fields, and every now and then she passed a small farmhouse, its porch glowing softly in the afternoon light. It felt like a different world, slower, calmer, almost peaceful. When she finally reached the ranch entrance, she stopped her car and stared for a moment. A wooden sign hung at the gate, carved with the words, "Holt Ranch." Behind it, long pastures spread out, dotted with oak trees that swayed gently in the warm breeze. The lodge stood farther ahead, large, sturdy, and welcoming, with smoke curling from its chimney. Elena took a deep breath. "This is what I need," she whispered to herself. She drove in, parked near the lodge, and stepped out. The air smelled like grass, sun-warmed earth, and something faintly sweet. Wildflowers, maybe. It was such a refreshing scent that she paused just to enjoy it. She reached for her suitcase in the trunk, but it was stuck under her other bags. Elena tugged at it stubbornly, determined to do everything on her own, the way she always did. Years of independence had built her into someone who never asked for help unless absolutely necessary. She didn't notice the footsteps approaching until a shadow covered her. "You need a hand with that?" a deep voice asked from behind. Elena jumped slightly and turned. A tall, broad-shouldered man stood a few feet away. He wore a faded denim shirt and dusty boots, and the afternoon sun caught the edges of his brown hair. He looked like someone carved from the land itself, strong, steady, and completely at ease in this world. But what struck her most were his eyes, blue-gray, warm, and surprisingly gentle for someone so physically imposing. She shook her head quickly. "I'm okay," she said, tugging harder at the suitcase. It didn't budge. The man watched her for a moment with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not impatience, not amusement, something more like quiet understanding. "Suitcase looks stuck," he said calmly. "It's fine," she insisted. He didn't argue. Instead, he stepped closer and crouched beside the trunk. With one easy motion, he lifted the suitcase free as if it weighed nothing at all. Elena blinked. He held it up for her to take, waiting politely, as if not wanting to overstep. "Thank you," she said, trying not to show how surprised she was. "I wasn't expecting it to be that heavy." "Some bags like to misbehave," he replied with a light nod. His voice had a rough warmth to it, deep but calm, like someone who didn't need to raise it to be heard. She took the suitcase, but her curiosity lingered. "Do you work here?" she asked. He nodded. "Caleb Holt." The last name clicked. Holt Ranch. "Oh," she said softly. "The owner?" He shrugged a little, as if the title didn't matter much. "My family runs the place. I manage most of what happens around here." There was a quiet confidence in the way he spoke, not boastful, just honest. "Elena Marquez," she introduced herself. "Thanks again for the help." "Welcome to the ranch, Elena." His tone was warm, polite, but something in the way he said her name felt unexpectedly grounding. "I hope you find what you're looking for here." Her breath caught a little. What she was looking for? She wasn't even sure herself. Peace, maybe. Rest. Space to think or not think at all. "I'm sure I will," she said, though her voice held more uncertainty than confidence. Caleb nodded once more and stepped back. "Let me know if you need anything during your stay." Elena watched him walk toward the stables. His stride was unhurried, almost quiet for someone so large. She couldn't help noticing how the other ranch workers greeted him with easy respect. He spoke to them briefly, giving instructions with calm authority. He didn't act like someone who wanted to stand out. He simply belonged here, the way the oak trees and open fields did. Elena pulled her suitcase toward the lodge, trying to shake off the strange flutter she felt in her stomach. She wasn't here for romance. She definitely wasn't here to get distracted by a cowboy, especially one who looked like he stepped straight out of a country novel. But even as she entered the lodge, her mind drifted back to his steady eyes, his quiet manner, the way he had noticed her struggle without making her feel embarrassed. She pushed the thought away. Inside, the lodge was warm with wooden beams, soft lamps, and the faint sound of distant laughter. The receptionist checked her in and handed her a key to a small cabin overlooking a field. As Elena stepped outside again, carrying her bags toward the cabin, she found herself glancing around for Caleb without meaning to. But he was nowhere in sight. "Good," she muttered under her breath. She didn't want distractions. She didn't come here to feel anything except peace. But the truth lingered quietly inside her, something she refused to admit even to herself. It had been a very, very long time since someone had looked at her the way Caleb Holt had, calmly, sincerely, as if she wasn't just another face passing through his day. That small, unexpected detail stayed with her long after she reached her cabin, unpacked her things, and lay on the soft bed staring at the wooden ceiling. For the first time in months, she felt herself exhale completely. Maybe this place really would help her rest. Maybe this week would finally give her the space she needed. And maybe, Though she didn't yet dare believe it, she would discover something she had lost a long time ago, a spark of feeling, a tiny shift in her heart, the beginning of a story she never expected. Elena woke up the next morning to sunlight spilling across her cabin floor. For a moment, she forgot where she was. She expected to hear city traffic, ambulance sirens, and the endless sounds of the hospital. But instead, she heard birdsong, soft, light, almost musical. She lay still for a minute, letting the peaceful silence wrap around her. Then it hit her. Texas. The ranch. The open sky. She sat up slowly and stretched. Her body still felt tired. But the heaviness in her chest had lifted a little, replaced by a strange sense of calm. She couldn't remember the last time she had woken up without alarm bells ringing in her head. After a quick shower, she stepped outside her cabin. The morning air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of grass and early sunshine. The entire ranch seemed painted in soft gold as the sun climbed higher. Elena pulled her sweater closer and walked toward the lodge for breakfast. As she got closer, she noticed a few other guests already sitting on the porch, sipping coffee and chatting quietly. The atmosphere felt warm and friendly, the kind of place where people smiled just because the day was starting. She offered a polite smile and entered the lodge. The breakfast area was simple but cozy, wooden tables, warm lights, and windows that looked out over endless fields. She grabbed a plate of scrambled eggs and fruit and chose a small table near the window. As she ate, she let her eyes wander over the view. Horses roamed in the distance, their movements slow and graceful, as if they had all the time in the world. Elena sighed softly. Maybe peace wasn't such an impossible thing after all. She was lost in thought when the lodge door opened and footsteps entered behind her. Elena didn't need to look to know who it was. Something in the quiet shift of the room told her. Caleb Holt. She felt his presence before she saw him. He greeted the lodge staff with a calm, "Morning," his voice steady and warm. A few guests returned his greeting with friendly nods. He seemed to belong here more naturally than the sunlight itself. Elena kept her eyes on her plate, not wanting to seem obvious, but curiosity tugged at her. She finally glanced up, and there he was across the room, filling a cup with coffee. He looked different in the morning light, softer somehow, like the edges of his strong features had been smoothed by the dawn. He caught her glance and offered a slight, polite smile. Elena's stomach flipped unexpectedly. He started walking toward her, not in a hurry, but with a steady, assured stride that made her heart thump louder. "Morning, Elena," he said when he reached her table. "Good morning," she replied, trying to sound calm. "Mind if I sit?" She hesitated only a second before shaking her head. "Go ahead." He sat across from her, his presence filling the small space without feeling overwhelming. For a moment, neither spoke. Elena felt strangely aware of everything, her breathing, the light tapping of his spoon against the cup, the scent of coffee drifting between them. "How was your first night on the ranch?" Caleb asked. "Peaceful," she answered honestly. "I slept better than I have in months." "That's good to hear." He nodded with quiet satisfaction, as if her rest mattered to him. There was something about the way he looked at her, not intense, not intrusive, just steady and attentive. It made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. After breakfast, she stepped outside, wanting to explore more of the ranch. To her surprise, Caleb followed her out. "If you're planning to walk around the property," he said, "I can show you a few good spots." "Oh, no, you don't have to," Elena replied automatically. "I don't mind," he said simply, hands resting casually on his hips. "Besides, it's better if someone familiar with the ranch guides you. We've got some uneven ground here and there." His tone wasn't forceful. It was protective but respectful, offering help without assuming she needed it. Elena hesitated only a moment before giving in. Okay, show me around. He nodded once, then led her toward the open fields. They walked side by side, a comfortable distance between them. The early sun warmed her shoulders, and the breeze brushed her hair gently. They passed the stables first. Horses peeked over their stall doors, some curious, some calm and uninterested. The scent of hay and leather surrounded them. You work with the horses? Elena asked. Every day, Caleb replied. They've been part of my life since I could walk. They're like family. He said it with simple honesty, no exaggeration. She watched him for a moment. Even the way he walked seemed in rhythm with the land, strong, sure, never rushed. Do you enjoy it? She asked. Caleb slowed, his eyes softening as he looked toward the stables. I do. The ranch keeps me grounded. Elena understood that feeling more than she expected. They continued walking until they reached a wide, open pasture. A few horses grazed peacefully. One of them, a chestnut mare, lifted her head and trotted toward them. She likes visitors, Caleb said with a small smile. He held out his hand gently, and the mare nuzzled his palm. He stroked her neck with such care, it was almost tender. Elena stepped closer, watching the interaction. The mare's calm eyes and soft breaths made her smile. You can pet her, Caleb said. She's gentle. Elena lifted her hand cautiously. The mare leaned closer, sniffed her palm, and then nudged her lightly. Elena laughed softly, surprised at the sudden affection. She's sweet. She is, Caleb agreed, watching Elena rather than the horse. For a moment their eyes met. Elena felt something warm bloom quietly in her chest. It wasn't attraction exactly, not yet. It was more like trust, trying to take its first breath. As they walked again, Elena noticed how the land stretched endlessly around them, like a painting that kept going. This place is beautiful, she said. Caleb's voice softened. It's home. They walked in silence for a while. It was comfortable, not awkward. Elena found herself breathing deeper, her shoulders loosening, as if the open sky worked like medicine. At one point, they reached a fence overlooking a small pond. Sunlight shimmered on the water, and the air felt still and calm. Elena leaned on the wooden fence, letting out a long breath. I needed this, she admitted quietly, almost to herself. Caleb stood beside her, arms crossed loosely. Most people don't realize how much they need peace until they finally have it. Elena nodded. I think I forgot what peace felt like. He glanced at her gently. You look tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep. She froze for a moment, surprised by how accurately he saw her. It's been a hard year, she said softly. A hard few years, actually. He didn't push for details. He simply nodded, offering silent understanding. That simple gesture made her chest tighten with emotion she wasn't ready to name. You don't have to talk about anything you don't want to, he added, but you can, if you ever feel like it. The kindness in his voice was unexpected, real, steady, without expectations. Thank you, she said quietly. They walked back toward the lodge at an easy pace. The path was shaded by old oak trees whose branches swayed gently overhead. As they reached the stables again, a sudden burst of noise caught Elena's attention. A horse inside one of the stalls was restless, kicking at the boards. Two workers hurried over, calling for calm, but the horse only grew more agitated. Elena stepped back instinctively. Caleb, however, moved forward without hesitation. Easy, he said in a calm, low voice as he approached the stall. The horse stomped, snorted, and tossed its head. One of the workers warned, He's spooked, maybe we should... But Caleb was already there. He didn't shout, didn't rush. He simply placed his hand on the gate and spoke softly, his voice steady as stone. It's all right. I'm here." Slowly, the horse's movement softened. Caleb opened the gate just enough to slip inside. Elena's breath held as she watched. The animal could easily knock him over, but instead, the horse lowered its head, breathing heavily. Caleb reached out and placed his hand on the horse's neck, guiding it gently. In seconds, the tension drained from the animal's body. The workers relaxed, impressed. Elena stared, mesmerized. She had seen people calm, frightened patients, but never an animal so powerful, so quickly. "How did you do that?" she asked as Caleb stepped back out. "Horses don't lie," he replied. "They respond to your heart, not your strength." His eyes met hers. For a moment, she felt he wasn't talking about horses at all. After a few more minutes, Elena excused herself, saying she wanted to rest before dinner. Caleb didn't press her to stay, didn't try to follow, just nodded politely. "Enjoy your afternoon, Elena." As she walked back to her cabin, her thoughts spun gently. She came here to rest, not to feel anything complicated. But everything about Caleb Holt, from his quiet strength to the softness in his voice, echoed in her mind. She wasn't falling for him. She refused to believe that, but something was changing. Something small, something warm, something she couldn't stop even if she tried. For the first time in a long time, Elena felt the faint, uncertain beginning of a story she hadn't expected to write. The afternoon passed quietly for Elena. She rested in her cabin, read a little, and walked around the ranch on her own. But no matter how peaceful the surroundings were, her mind kept drifting back to Caleb. His steady voice, his calm presence, the kindness in his eyes. She tried to push the thoughts away, reminding herself she came here to rest, not to let her heart wander. But some thoughts have a way of returning no matter how many times they are pushed aside. By evening, the sky had turned soft and orange. The lodge glowed warmly from within, and the sound of laughter floated out through the open windows. Guests were gathering for dinner. Elena took one last deep breath of the cool air before heading inside. The dining hall was full, but not crowded. People sat at round tables that gave the room a friendly, home-like atmosphere. A fire crackled gently in the stone fireplace. Elena found a seat near the corner, not wanting to sit alone in the direct center of attention. She was halfway through her meal when the wind outside picked up sharply, rattling the windows. A few guests looked up. Thunder rumbled in the distance, low and rolling like something heavy waking up. Elena glanced outside. The peaceful sky had darkened quickly, turning a deep blue-green color that only storms carried. "That came fast," someone murmured. "Yes," another replied. "Texas storms always do." Lightning flashed, bright enough to light the entire room for a second. Elena felt her chest tighten. She had handled emergencies for years, but storms always made her uneasy, a leftover fear from childhood. Still, she stayed calm and continued eating. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice, everything went dark. The room fell silent, except for the rumble of thunder and the heavy wind pushing against the walls. A few guests gasped. A child began to cry softly. Elena's instincts sharpened instantly. She wasn't on duty, but the familiar need to help rose inside her. She stood up and spoke in a steady voice. "It's okay. Everyone stay calm. The backup power should come on soon." People turned to her with relief, as if her calmness made the darkness a little less frightening. Footsteps approached from the entrance. Elena turned just as the door opened. Lightning flashed again, revealing Caleb's silhouette. He walked inside, brushing rain from his shoulders. Even in the dark, he looked steady and composed. His presence alone brought a sense of order. "Power lines are down," he announced, voice clear in the room. "But we're safe here in the lodge. We'll get lanterns and candles going." He moved with purpose, handing out battery lanterns to the staff, speaking to them quietly but firmly. They listened closely, following his instructions. Elena admired how he stayed calm despite the storm raging outside. He wasn't loud. He didn't rush. He simply made everything feel under control. When he reached her table, he paused. "You all right?" She nodded. "Yes, just helping keep people calm." "I noticed," he said, his tone warm. "I appreciate that." Another flash of lightning lit the room. The thunder that followed shook the windows. More guests flinched. Elena placed a gentle hand on the shoulder of a nearby woman who looked terrified. "Storms sound worse than they are," she said. "We're safe inside. Just breathe slowly." The woman nodded, visibly comforted. Caleb watched Elena quietly, seeing the natural way she soothed others. Then he leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You don't have to take care of everyone tonight." "It's a habit," she whispered back. "I can tell." His voice held no judgment, only understanding. Minutes passed. The staff distributed lanterns around the room, creating warm circles of light that softened the darkness. The storm continued outside, loud and wild. Then, when things seemed calmer, Caleb approached Elena again. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" She hesitated. His voice was quiet, but serious. She stood and followed him toward a hallway that led to the ranch office. The lantern light flickered softly across the wooden walls. When they reached the small hallway, he stopped and turned toward her. His expression was gentle. But something deeper lay in his eyes. Concern, maybe even something more. "You looked frightened earlier," he said. Elena swallowed. "Storms remind me of difficult memories. I'm not scared of the storm itself, just the feeling." He nodded slowly. "Everyone has something that unsettles them." She looked out the window. Rain whipped against the glass in long streaks. The wind howled. "Being alone during a storm was always the worst part for me," she admitted. "Tonight it feels heavy." Lightning flashed again and thunder boomed. Elena flinched before she could stop herself. Caleb noticed. He stepped just a little closer, not invading her space, but offering steadiness. "You're not alone here," he said simply. The truth in his words settled softly inside her. She drew a slow breath. "You're good at this," she said quietly. "Keeping people calm." "So are you," he replied. "But you don't always have to be the strong one." His voice was low, not commanding, just honest. The storm grew louder. The windows shook again. Elena wrapped her arms around herself without thinking. Caleb watched her for a long moment. "Come with me," he said gently. "There's a quieter place you can wait." She hesitated, unsure why her heart beat faster at such simple words. But something about his presence made her feel safe. Safer than she had felt in a long time. "Okay," she whispered. He led her to a small side room near the stables, a room with thick wooden walls, shelves of tools, and a single lantern glowing on a table. The storm's noise was softer here, muffled. Elena sat down on a bench along the wall. Caleb stayed nearby, leaning against the opposite side of the room with crossed arms, watching her calmly. For a while, neither spoke. Rain pummeled the roof, wind whistled, but Elena felt her heartbeat slowly returning to normal. She glanced at him. "You didn't have to bring me here." "I know," he said. "But I wanted to." His eyes held a depth she had not seen before, something warm, steady, and real. "You take care of everyone," he continued, "but someone has to take care of you too." Elena looked down at her hands. No one had said something like that to her in years. The lantern light flickered across Caleb's face, casting soft shadows that made him look both gentle and strong at once. He watched her quietly, not pushing her to talk, not filling the silence with meaningless words. Finally, Elena spoke in a low voice. I didn't come here for anything more than rest. I'm not looking for anything complicated. I know, he replied calmly. His understanding tone made her look up. Their eyes held for a moment longer than either expected. Caleb took a slow breath. When he spoke, his voice was deep and sincere, carrying a calm strength rather than intensity. Tonight, I'm claiming one thing, he said. Your trust. Only if you want to give it. Elena's breath caught. He wasn't asking for love or promises. He wasn't trying to sweep her into something she wasn't ready for. He was offering something simple but powerful: safety, stability, and respect. Her heart softened in a way that surprised her. She whispered, I don't trust easily. I'm not asking for lifetime trust, he said. Just this moment. Because you don't have to face the storm alone. The truth in his words settled deep inside her chest, deeper than she expected. She felt a warmth there, gentle but undeniable. She nodded slowly. Okay, you can have my trust. For tonight. His shoulders relaxed slightly, as if her words mattered more than she realized. I'll take good care of it, he said quietly. Silence filled the room again, but this time it felt different, warmer, softer, almost peaceful. Elena no longer felt the fear she'd carried when the storm began. Caleb's presence grounded her in a way that made her chest loosen. Minutes passed with the storm slowly calming outside. Rain softened to a steady rhythm. Thunder drifted farther away, becoming a distant hum. Elena finally exhaled, shoulders dropping in relief. It's easing. Caleb nodded. Storms don't last forever. Neither did fear, she realized, not when someone stood beside her. She looked at him, this tall, quiet man who had offered her comfort without asking for anything in return. Something inside her shifted in that moment. Not love, not attachment, but possibility. A small beginning, a seed of trust. When the storm finally faded to nothing more than gentle rain, Caleb walked her back to the lodge. The lanterns inside glowed softly. Guests were relaxing again, talking, laughing quietly. Before she stepped inside, Elena turned to Caleb. Thank you, she said softly. For everything. He nodded once, his eyes warm. Anytime, Elena. She walked into the lodge, heart steady for the first time in a long time. Something inside her had changed, quietly, gently, like a door opening. She wasn't ready to call it love, but she was ready to let something new take root. The storm had passed by the time Elena woke the next morning, but its memory still lingered in her heart. Soft, quiet, and strangely warm. The room was filled with gentle morning light, and for the first time in a long while, she felt rested. Not just physically rested, but emotionally steadier, as if something inside her had settled. She got dressed slowly, thinking about the previous night. The dark lodge, the thunder, her fear, and then Caleb's calm voice telling her she wasn't alone. She remembered the way he had spoken with gentle firmness, how he had asked for her trust without pressure or expectation. The warmth in his eyes still lingered in her mind. She shook her head as she looked at herself in the mirror. This wasn't supposed to happen, she murmured. She had come to the ranch to escape her life, not to find someone who made her heart feel lighter. Outside, the ranch was washed clean by the rain. Drops of water clung to the grass like tiny diamonds. The air smelled fresh, as if the world had taken a long, deep breath. Elena walked toward the lodge for breakfast. She tried not to look for Caleb, but her eyes scanned the room all the same. For a moment, she didn't see him. She felt an unexpected pinch of disappointment. Then she heard footsteps behind her. Morning, Elena. His voice was steady, warm, comforting in a way she hadn't fully understood until last night. Elena turned, and there he stood, calm, collected, and gentle as always. "Morning," she said, giving a small smile she didn't have to force. He studied her face briefly. "You slept better?" "I did," she admitted. "Thanks to you." He shook his head slightly. "You did that yourself. I just stayed nearby." She appreciated his humility, even though she knew his presence had made all the difference. They walked inside together. The lodge felt lively again. Guests chatting, children laughing, the scent of warm coffee filling the air. Elena sat at a table by the window, and Caleb joined her without hesitation, though he made sure she was comfortable with it first. They talked softly as they ate. Nothing dramatic, just small, gentle conversation about the ranch, the weather, and the storm's damage. But each word felt like another thread pulling them closer, weaving something new between them. After breakfast, Caleb stood and asked, "Do you want to walk with me?" "I need to check the pastures after the storm." Elena hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Yes, I'd like that." They walked side by side through the fields. Birds fluttered from tree to tree. The wet earth smelled rich. Sunlight sparkled on the pond like scattered gold. At first, they walked in comfortable silence. Elena found herself enjoying simply being near him. His presence no longer startled her. Instead, it steadied her. Eventually, he spoke. "You were brave last night." Elena let out a small laugh. "I don't think so." "You were," he insisted gently. "You helped calm people even when you were scared. That's strength." She looked toward the horses grazing peacefully. "I'm used to being strong. I don't always know how to be anything else." Caleb slowed his steps. "You don't have to be strong all the time, not here." "Not with me." The honesty in his voice made her chest tighten. She wanted to believe him. She almost did. But part of her still held back, out of fear, habit, or both. They reached the fence near the pond. Caleb leaned on it, arms folded loosely. Elena stood beside him, feeling the warm breeze brush her hair. "You know," Caleb said after a long pause, "I don't often open up to people. But last night, it felt right to talk to you." Elena turned her head. His eyes held a sincerity that made her heart skip. "Why me?" "Because you listen," he said simply. "Because you don't pretend. And because you look at the world with a tired heart, but a kind one." Her breath caught slightly. No one had seen her that clearly in years. "I'm leaving in a few days," she reminded him gently. "This is temporary." He nodded, though his eyes held something deeper. "I know." They both looked out at the pond again. The water rippled under the breeze, carrying sunlight across its surface. "Elena," he said quietly, "I'm not asking you to stay. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready for." She looked at him, heart thudding softly. "I just want you to know," he continued, "you're not alone in this world. Not unless you choose to be." His words were simple, but they reached a part of her she had locked away for years. She swallowed. "I don't know what I want yet." Caleb nodded gently. "Then take your time." They walked back slowly. The sun climbed higher. The ranch came alive again after the storm, workers fixing fences, guests riding horses, the lodge buzzing with activity. The rest of the day passed peacefully. Elena joined a group of guests for a short trail ride, and though she had never ridden before, she felt safe with the gentle horse she was given. Every now and then she caught glimpses of Caleb from across the field, checking on repairs or talking with workers. And every time their eyes met, something warm and quiet passed between them. When evening came, the sky turned a soft pink. Elena stood on the porch of the lodge, watching the light fade. Her heart felt calm but full. Too full, maybe. She wasn't sure how to untangle all the emotions blooming inside her. Caleb appeared beside her, leaning on the wooden railing. "Beautiful evening." "It is," she said softly. They stood in silence for several minutes. The sky deepened from pink to purple. Fireflies began to dance across the grass like tiny lanterns. Then Caleb spoke quietly. "You leave tomorrow?" Elena nodded. "Yes." "Do you feel ready?" he asked, turning slightly to face her. She let out a slow breath. "That's the strange part. I don't know." He waited, giving her space to find her words. "I came here to rest," she said. "To escape my life for a week. I told myself nothing here would matter after I left." She paused. "But now, something does." Caleb looked at her with steady eyes, patient, hopeful, but not demanding. "Is that something good?" She nodded, her voice soft. "Yes, it's good." Warmth spread through his expression. "I don't want to run from things that matter anymore," she continued. "But I'm afraid of opening my heart again, afraid of trusting the wrong person, afraid of—" She trailed off, unable to finish, but Caleb stepped in gently. "Afraid of losing something before it even begins?" Elena felt her chest tighten. "Exactly." Caleb leaned slightly closer, not touching, but offering closeness. "Elena, nothing in life comes with guarantees, but some people are worth taking a chance on." His voice was soft, but each word carried weight. "And you?" she whispered. "Are you one of those people?" He held her gaze, steady and honest. "I hope so, but I'm not asking you to choose tonight. I just want you to know that if you decide to give this, whatever this is, a chance, I'll be here." Elena's breath trembled. She wasn't used to this kind of sincerity. Calm, patient, real. It scared her, but it also drew her in. She looked out at the fireflies again. "I don't want to leave this behind," she admitted quietly. "Not completely." "Then don't," Caleb said gently. "Come back when you're ready, or let me come see you. We'll figure it out slowly. No rush." His words felt like a warm blanket around her heart. Elena turned toward him fully. For the first time since she met him, she let all her walls fall. Every fear, every hesitation, every old wound she carried. "You've given me something I thought I had lost forever," she said softly. "Hope." Caleb's eyes softened in a way that made her chest flutter. "And you've given me something too," he replied. "Someone worth waiting for." She took a slow, steady breath. Then she stepped closer, not out of fear, but out of trust. "Caleb," she said quietly, "I'm ready to believe in something again, maybe even in love. But I need you to be patient with me." He nodded, voice low but full of warmth. "I can do patient, Elena." A gentle breeze rustled the grass. Fireflies glowed around them like tiny stars. Elena felt the world around her shift, not dramatically, not wildly, but gently, like a door finally opening after being shut for too long. She reached up slowly, and he met her halfway, their hands touching softly. Nothing rushed, nothing forced, just two people choosing trust. For the first time in years, Elena didn't feel afraid. She felt ready. A new beginning, a quiet hope, a story she never expected, but one she was finally willing to explore.